I never thought the person I trusted most would be the one to destroy me. His smile was always the first thing I saw when I walked into the office. He laughed at my jokes, praised my ideas, and made me feel like we were building something real, together. My business, my clients, my reputation. I thought it was all safe in our partnership. But I was wrong. His name was Ryan. We met 5 years ago, two ambitious guys with the same dream, to build a marketing agency that would stand out. We had nothing at first, just ideas, a small office space, and a shared belief that hard work would pay off. At first, everything went smoothly. We celebrated our wins, small and big. Signing our first major client felt like climbing Everest. The first time we landed a 6-figure contract, I remember shaking his hand and thinking, "This is it. We're unstoppable." Ryan always had the charm. He knew how to talk to people, how to make them feel heard, understood, important, and I trusted him with every detail of the business. I shared client lists, strategies, budgets, everything. I even trusted him to handle sensitive contracts on his own, because I believed in him, blindly. And then the first signs of trouble appeared. It started with small things: calls not returned, emails delayed, clients asking me about strange changes in our projects. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe he was just busy, but deep down, something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but the unease grew like a shadow over my chest. One evening, after a long day, I opened my email and froze. Multiple clients had sent me messages, confused, frustrated, even angry. They were signing with someone else, someone who knew exactly how to pitch, exactly how to close, someone who sounded too familiar. My heart sank. I called Ryan. "Hey, did you—" I didn't finish the question. His voice was smooth, casual, almost too calm. "Relax. It's just a few clients exploring other options. Nothing to worry about." But I knew it wasn't nothing. I began digging quietly, reviewing contracts, checking our records. And then it hit me. One by one, clients I had spent years building relationships with were gone. And Ryan, he wasn't just losing them. He was taking them. He had created a secret company account, a shadow agency, and slowly siphoned every single client into it. I couldn't believe it. My own business partner, my friend, the person I shared late nights, long brainstorming sessions, and dreams with. He had betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. I confronted him the next morning. "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking but my eyes burning with anger. He smiled, that same charming smile that had fooled me for years. "Business is business, Mike," he said. "You know how it works. It's survival of the fittest." The words cut deeper than any knife. Survival of the fittest? I thought survival was supposed to include trust, loyalty, friendship, but for him, it meant destruction. For days, I was lost. Every memory of our partnership felt poisoned. I walked into the office, seeing shadows of lies in every corner. I replayed every conversation, every handshake, every promise. Every moment had been a setup for this betrayal. And then, just when I thought the story had reached its darkest point, my phone rang. The name on the screen made my blood freeze. It wasn't Ryan. It was her, his wife. I answered, cautious, suspicious. "Hello?" "Mike, I think you need to see this," she whispered, voice trembling. "I didn't know how to tell you, but I found something. His bank file. Every transaction. Every secret account he's been hiding." I froze. My mind raced. Could it be true? Could the woman closest to him, the one living under the same roof, really have uncovered his entire scheme? Yes, send it to me," I stammered. That call changed everything. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. There was a way to fight back, a way to reclaim what was stolen. But I couldn't rush. I had to plan. I had to be smart, because Ryan was no ordinary enemy. He was cunning, manipulative, and ruthless. And I was about to learn that revenge isn't about anger. It's about strategy, patience, and precision. The moment she sent the file, I felt like the world had shifted beneath me. Every secret transaction, every hidden account, every single client he had stolen, it was all there, documented, undeniable. Ryan had been living a double life, and I finally had proof. I stared at the numbers, the names, the dates, years of work, stolen. And yet, I didn't feel the relief I expected. I felt fury. Pure, cold, calculated fury. I remembered the way he laughed when I confronted him, the way he tried to brush it off. He thought he was untouchable. That arrogance was going to be his downfall, but I couldn't act recklessly. I needed a plan. Revenge isn't a fire you light in the heat of the moment. It's a storm you prepare for silently, until the exact second it hits. I started documenting everything. Emails, contracts, messages, bank transactions. I mapped out a timeline of how he had betrayed me, tracing every step like a detective. The more I looked, the more I realized the scale of his deceit. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a carefully orchestrated theft of my life and Saka's work. And then I thought about the people who had trusted me, my clients, my employees, everyone who believed in our partnership. Ryan hadn't just betrayed me. He had jeopardized their businesses, their livelihoods, their trust. That thought burned hotter than my own anger. I knew confronting him directly wouldn't work. He thrived on manipulation. He would lie, twist words, charm his way out. I needed something stronger, something undeniable, evidence that couldn't be ignored, proof that would leave him speechless. The first step was subtle. I didn't want him to suspect I knew the full extent of his deceit. I acted calm in meetings, asked casual questions, checked in with clients discreetly. I was watching, learning, planning. Every move he made, every call he made, became a piece of the puzzle. Meanwhile, his wife continued to feed me small pieces of information. At first, I was wary. Was she trustworthy? Was she manipulating me too? But the way she spoke, the hesitation, the guilt in her voice, it was real. She hated what he had done, and I could tell she wanted him stopped. We developed a silent alliance. She gave me access to details I couldn't have discovered on my own. Bank statements, client emails, internal contracts. Each piece brought clarity, and with clarity came control. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt the scales tipping back in my favor. I started imagining how I would expose him. Not with anger, not with threats, but with undeniable truth. I pictured the moment when his clients would see his lies, the moment he would face the consequences of everything he had done. It was intoxicating, and it kept me awake at night. Yet, despite my planning, I had to be careful. Ryan was unpredictable. He had already shown he could destroy lives without remorse. One wrong step, and he could ruin me completely. That's why patience became my weapon. I moved slowly, deliberately, making sure every detail was perfect. There were nights I sat in my office long after everyone left, staring at the numbers on my screen, imagining the confrontation. How will he react when he sees I know everything? How will he respond when his empire, built on lies, crumbles? And I knew the answer wouldn't be immediate satisfaction. The real victory would be watching him exposed in a way he couldn't recover from. Clean, undeniable, and irreversible. That thought alone became my fuel. I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't just reclaim my clients. I would ensure he couldn't betray anyone else like he did me. Every step had to be precise. Every move had to be calculated. The storm was coming. And Ryan had no idea. I had the proof. I had the map of his deceit. And now, it was time to act. But acting didn't mean rushing in blindly. Ryan had underestimated me before, and I wasn't about to let him make that mistake twice. The first step was subtle, reconnecting with the clients he had stolen. Not with accusations or threats, but with trust. I reached out personally, one by one, speaking to them honestly, reminding them of our history, our work, the promises I had kept. Some were hesitant. Some were still angry. But slowly, the door began to open. They trusted results. They trusted commitment. And that was something Ryan could never fake. While I rebuilt those bridges, I kept digging into his financial records. Every hidden account, every offshore transaction, every client payment rerouted to him, it all painted a clear picture. But the more I saw, the more I realized he had underestimated how visible his trail really was. Every lie, every stolen client had left a fingerprint. And fingerprints don't lie. His arrogance became my weapon. He still flaunted his success, bragged to friends, and acted like nothing had happened. Every boast, every careless move became material for my eventual exposure. Every misstep he made was another nail in his coffin. Meanwhile, his wife, trembling yet determined, continued to feed me secrets. She showed me screenshots of messages I would never have discovered on my own. Plans to expand his shadow agency, threats to cover up transactions, lies he spread to clients about me behind my back. I read them all, heart pounding, each one fueling a quiet, simmering anger that was sharper than any scream. I realized revenge isn't about confrontation. It's about patience, precision, and timing. It's about building a truth so undeniable that when it hits, the person on the other side is left speechless. I envisioned the moment vividly. Ryan, in a room full of clients and colleagues, confronted with every proof, every email, every account. His charm would crumble. His lies would shatter. And finally, justice would be served, not through chaos, but through clarity. But there was one problem. Ryan was unpredictable. He could sense suspicion, manipulate situations, and spin narratives to his advantage. One wrong move from me, and everything I had built could collapse. That's why I had to be invisible. I had to act like the storm hadn't even started while the storm was building behind my calm facade. I began gathering the final pieces. Every client story, every contract history, every hidden transaction needed to be documented perfectly. I even kept a private ledger of his lies versus the truth. It felt almost surgical, methodical, precise, and cold. But in my mind, it was justice. It wasn't revenge and anger, it was a reckoning. Then came the turning point. One of the clients I thought was lost forever reached out to me unexpectedly. "Mike, I need your help," they said. "Ryan promised me results, but it's all gone wrong. I don't know why, but I feel like something's off." That call was everything. It confirmed my suspicion that Ryan's house of cards was weaker than he thought. Each client had a story, each story a crack, and all I had to do was connect the dots. I started leaving subtle hints, making small disclosures, just enough to create curiosity. Nothing direct, nothing that could backfire. Ryan still didn't know I was aware of every move he had made. He still believed his secret empire was untouchable, and that belief, that arrogance, that would be his undoing. At night, I'd sit alone, staring at the files on my computer, replaying every step, every transaction, every stolen client, every lie. I memorized it all. I became obsessed, not with hatred, but with precision, because when the time came, I would hit him where it hurt most: credibility, trust, reputation. And I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The storm was coming, and when it did, he wouldn't see it until it was too late. The day I decided to strike, the office felt colder than usual. I walked through the familiar corridors the way a man walks into a courtroom, calm, steady, carrying the weight of truth. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times, but nothing prepared me for the quiet before the storm. I called a meeting and invited everyone: clients, key staff, a few outside consultants I trusted. I told them it was an update about the company's future. Ryan sat across from me, perfectly composed, his grin like a practiced mask. He had no idea the trap had been set. I began with a story, simple, human, unadorned. I told them about how we started, the late nights, the promises made. I spoke softly, letting the memory of our beginnings do the work that spectacle could not. Their eyes softened. People remember roots. People respect honesty. Then I did something unexpected. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I presented facts. One by one, I laid out the evidence. Contracts that had suddenly changed payees, emails showing alternate billing, bank transfers to an account no one knew existed. I moved like a surgeon, precise and controlled, placing each document where it could be seen, where it couldn't be ignored. Ryan tried to interrupt. "This is slander," he said, voice sliding into that practiced charm. "You don't have the whole story." I watched his mouth, the small tics he made when lying. I let him talk. Every lie was a gift, an extra crack in the facade. I stayed calm and let the documents speak louder than his words. People don't defend facts with charm. They sputter. They stumble. He sputtered. Then I played a recording, one his wife had secretly made, his own voice explaining how he rerouted clients and hidden payments. The room fell into a noise so thick it could be felt. Clients looked at one another, their faces a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. The staff shifted in their seats, the trust we had all built suddenly fragile and trembling. "You promised transparency," I said, meeting his eyes. "You promised we were partners." His face contorted, not with anger, but with panic. The confident Ryan I knew had dissolved into something smaller. Clients demanded answers. Questions flew like shards. The consultants took notes, their silence heavy. One client, an older woman who had trusted us with her life as business, stood and walked up to the table. She touched the contract with hands that had built a life. "You took from me," she whispered, voice unsteady. "You lied about our payments. You ruined months of planning." Her eyes met mine, and, for the first time since the betrayal, I felt vindicated. Not by revenge, but by justice. The fallout was immediate. A few clients left the room without a word. Others stayed, waiting to see how it would end. Some signed termination notices on the spot. The trust Ryan had stolen from so many was returning to the surface like a tide. Ryan's defense crumbled under the weight of paper, numbers, and truth. He pleaded, offered excuses, begged for time. But time was the one thing he had weaponized against us. Until now. Now, time worked for me. Each transaction, each hidden account was a timestamp of his deceit. Then something unexpected happened. His wife walked in. She stood beside me, not as an accomplice, but as a witness. She spoke with quiet remorse and a clarity that cut through the room. "I didn't know what to do," she said. "I loved him, but I couldn't watch him destroy everything. I'm sorry." Her apology was small, human, and it turned the last thread of sympathy people might have had for Ryan into dust. Legal counsel arrived within hours. Notices were sent. Internal audits were launched. The company we had built together splintered under the pressure of truth. The man who once greeted me with a smile was now escorted out, his face ashen, clutching a box of belongings as if that could hold what he'd stolen. Watching him go, I didn't feel the expected glee. I felt a hollow relief, like a breath taken after holding it for too long. The victory wasn't about breaking him. It was about fixing what he had broken, rebuilding trust, giving clients back their dignity, protecting employees who had trusted us. Even in the aftermath, there was chaos. Contracts needed renegotiation, clients needed reassurance, and lawsuits loomed like dark clouds. But there was also movement, action, accountability, the slow work of repair. People reached out, offering support. Some clients returned not out of obligation, but because they saw the truth and valued the integrity behind it. That night, alone in the office, I walked past the photos on the wall. Moments of triumph, laughter, early victories. Each one felt both precious and fragile. I placed a hand on the glass, and for the first time since the betrayal, I allowed myself to feel the weight of what had been reclaimed. Revenge had arrived as exposure, and exposure had brought consequences. But the true victory was not the fall of one man. It was the restoration of what mattered most: trust, honesty, and the knowledge that deception, no matter how clever, eventually meets the light. The morning after the exposure felt quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that follows a storm when the rain has stopped but the ground is still soaked, heavy with what just happened. The office was half empty, files scattered, chairs unaligned, papers still on the conference table from the confrontation. I sat at my desk, staring at the faint sunlight cutting through the blinds. For the first time in months, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel panic. I just felt still. Ryan was gone. The board had voted to remove him permanently. Legal investigations were already underway. Some clients decided to sue him directly. Others joined me, offering statements to clear their names and contracts. His secret empire, the one he built from my trust and our clients' faith, collapsed overnight. But even as justice began to unfold, I realized something deeper. Revenge had never been about destroying him. It had always been about reclaiming myself. I spent weeks repairing the damage. I called every client personally, one by one, not to apologize for what he did, but to take responsibility for what I allowed by trusting blindly. Some were angry, others forgiving. Most were simply tired of the lies. But every call rebuilt something, brick by brick, truth by truth. I also started rebuilding the company. Not as a partnership this time, but as a promise. I rebranded the agency, gave it a new name, a name that represented resilience and honesty. The same employees who had witnessed the chaos stood beside me, ready to rebuild. Their loyalty wasn't to the company anymore. It was to the truth we stood for. There were difficult days, of course. The lawsuits dragged on. Some nights, I woke up with the echo of his words in my mind. Business is business. Survival of the fittest. But now, those words didn't haunt me. They motivated me. Because I had survived, and not by deceit, not by manipulation, but by integrity. And then one evening, months later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was her, Ryan's wife. She wrote, "He's gone. We divorced. He's moved to another city. I don't think he'll ever recover from what happened. But thank you for exposing the truth, for saving people from him. You didn't just end his lies. You ended mine, too." I sat in silence for a long time, reading that message over and over. It hit me harder than I expected, because her pain, too, was part of the story. She had been trapped in his web just like the rest of us, and in helping me, she had freed herself. A few weeks later, I found myself walking past our old office building, the first one we rented when everything began. It was empty now, the glass door covered in dust, the sign faded and peeling. I stood there for a while thinking about how it all started with trust and how it ended with truth. Sometimes life has to break you to rebuild you. Sometimes betrayal isn't the end. It's the moment that forces you to grow into someone stronger, sharper, more aware. I thought about all the things I had lost: money, clients, time, peace. But I also thought about what I had gained: clarity, resilience, and a story that would stay with me for the rest of my life. The truth is, revenge didn't heal me. Exposure did. Accountability did. Seeing people believe in honesty again, that's what brought peace. As I looked up at the sky, I whispered to myself, "You were wrong, Ryan. Survival isn't about the fittest. It's about the honest. The ones who get up after the fall and keep walking." That night I returned to the new office, the one we built from scratch after everything collapsed. The walls were brighter, the space smaller, but it felt more alive. The laughter from my team sounded different this time, real, unfiltered, genuine. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The first email of the day came in, another client referral, not because of flashy marketing or charm, but because of something rarer. Trust earned the hard way. I leaned back, smiled faintly, and finally felt the weight lift. The chapter had closed, not with vengeance, but with peace. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't ruining them. It's rebuilding yourself so strong that they can never ruin you again.